Hello and welcome to the RPG Blender, where we give lesser played games and forgotten settings the roll the dice they deserve. I'm your host, Game Master George, and today we are continuing our look into the playtest release of an upcoming tabletop RPG, Rupture. Previously, we took a quick look at the overall lore of the world of Rupture, continuing in our quick lore series of videos, as well as how to guide your players through character creation. And now that everyone has their sheet made, it's time to see just how they play. So today we will be covering the basic mechanics of this game, the building blocks which will be used for the more complicated sections of the rules. We'll go through the dice mechanics, the combat, and some of the more unique elements of this game. Then if you'd like, you can check out our actual play to see the rules in action. Link in the cards. Then be sure to subscribe for the next parts of this tutorial, where we'll talk about the more complicated rules of this game. But before we dive in, just a quick word from our sponsor, Rupture. Rupture is an upcoming tabletop RPG with a focus on character creation and story. Featuring an easy-to-use character background generator, Rupture strives to help give role-playing newbies a ready-made backstory, and veterans some interesting seeds for them to flash out. You'll find enough crunch and mechanics, which we'll learn today, to satisfy the gamer side, while the actual play is given story-first gameplay. If this sounds interesting, and you're currently watching a tutorial on how to play this game, so I must imagine it does, the Kickstarter will be launching on September 6th, or you can join their mailing list at www.rupturerpg.com. Now, without further promotion, let's dive into a brand new RPG in part 3 of Let's Run Beta, Rupture, Basic Mechanics. To begin with, let's talk dice. Rupture is based around the D12 for its central mechanics. In most situations, you'll be rolling a single D12 and adding modifiers. There are some instances of other dice, such as D4s for Minor Curse, or D20s for Blast, but for the most part, this game will be a workout for your least used dice. For the basic roll, you will roll that D12, then add 2 modifiers. These modifiers are the appropriate skill for the action being taken, and an attribute. Generally speaking, the attribute will be the one that is tied to the skill being used. So when hiding, the player would roll Stealth plus the linked attribute of Agility. However, if the player is trying to survey an area to find likely spots an assassin might hide, the narrator might allow them to use an Intelligence or Perception stealth roll, utilizing their expertise in sneaking around to find likely spots. Once the modified total is calculated, it is compared to the target number assigned by the narrator. For a task which is simple but still has the potential of failure, the target number would be 12. Something difficult would require a 24, and something only a master could achieve would require a 32. You can use these guidelines to set the target based on the determined difficulty of the task. If the roll is greater than or equal to the target, ties always go to the player, it is a success. Upon success, the player checks off one of the boxes next to the skill. When all 10 boxes are checked, the player gains a rank in that skill. Certain advantages or disadvantages may lower or raise the number of boxes. Should they manage to roll a value which is at least double the target number, they have gotten a critical success. Not only do they spectacularly succeed in their task, they also get to check off 2 of those boxes. On the other hand, if they roll a 1 on that D12, they have threatened a critical failure. To determine if a roll is a critical failure, first you drop a D12, and note the result. If the skill is a class skill, you cannot critically fail. So on a roll of 1 to 6, it is just an automatic failure, whereas a roll of 7 to 12, you just take the roll of 1 and add your normal modifiers to determine if the roll is successful. However, things are worse when the skill is not a class skill. In such a case, on a roll of 7 to 12, it is simply an automatic failure. If the result is 6 or lower, however, you have a major failure. The specific number rolled will be compared to the critical failure chart to determine just how badly things go. As a trade-off, if you get that critical failure, you get to check off one of the 5 crit fail boxes for that skill. Once all 5 are checked, you gain a rank in that skill. So, silver lining? Now, as you may have noticed, some of these target numbers are very high to be reached by a D12. To help you reach them, there is the rule of 12. If you ever roll a 12, you roll again and add your new result to the total. You keep doing this until you roll a non-12 value. Additionally, by describing actions in an interesting manner, the narrator can award the player a situational immersion bonus. By just giving a nice description, the narrator can give a +1 bonus. If the description adds depth to the character, or helps pull in other characters, they can give a +3. Finally, if the description is something awe-inspiring, or elicits a big emotional response, the narrator can give a +5. Before we get to combat, let's talk initiative. Initiative is what you expect, a roll to determine the order in which people act. This is not specific to combat. Anytime that the order of actions matter, initiative should be used. You roll a d12 and add your initiative modifier. Higher values act first, working your way down to the lower. Now let's talk combat. Combat in this game is not a grid-based tactical experience. Instead, this is a more narrative approach to combat. Each round lasts 20 seconds, with 10 seconds being devoted to taking actions, while the other 10 are devoted to reacting to other people's actions. On their turn, the player can take as many actions as can reasonably be accomplished in those 10 seconds. This is a matter of what makes sense, so it relies on the narrator making the call about what is reasonable. So what can you do? Well, the main action is, of course, attacking. When you attack, you roll a d12 and add your relevant weapon skill, in addition to the linked attribute. Rather than hitting a static value, this is opposed by the target's dodge or block check. If the attacker beats the defender, they hit. But if the defender beats the attacker, then they miss. Remember, ties go to the player. When the attack lands, the attacker rolls on the location table. The location hit may modify the damage done to the target. Then, finally, they will roll their weapon damage. Beyond attacking, the player could cast spells or come up with some creative action. Remember, creativity is to be rewarded in this game. Now, there is one exception to being able to take multiple actions in combat. Should an attacker miss a melee attack, their actions immediately end. Committing to the strike, then recovering from the miss takes up their remaining time. They can still take reactive actions should a situation arise for one. Once an attack has hit, armor comes into play. Each armor type has a rating and a durability. The rating is a straight reduction of the damage dealt. If the damage does not overcome the rating, the damage is completely soaked and no life points are lost. If the damage is greater than the rating, however, any excess damage is subtracted from the life points. In such a case, the durability is decreased by 1. If the durability ever reaches 0, the armor is broken and will no longer offer protection. So let's say you've just taken a hit and had your life points reduced. Depending on the amount, a few things could happen. First, each character has a wound value. If they ever take damage greater than their wound value in a single strike, they take a level 1 wound. This wound gives a -1 to all rolls. If the damage is double the value, they get a level 2 wound instead, which gives a -3 penalty. Finally, if the damage is triple or more, they get a level 3 wound, which confers a -5 penalty. Should a player ever receive 2 wounds of the same level, both are removed and replaced by a single wound of the next highest level. Should 2 level 3 wounds ever be received, the character is immediately knocked unconscious. In addition to the wound value, the player also has an unconscious value. This is the life point total at which the character will fall unconscious. Once the player's life point total drops below this value, they fall unconscious, unable to take actions. And should the total ever hit 0, congratulations, you're dead. If all this sounds brutal, and for low constitution characters like my poor player's Fairy Thistle, it is, don't worry, there is hope. Each character has a healing rate. The character recovers that many life points per hour while resting. However, wounds are not so easily healed, requiring special magic to do so. To close it out, let's talk advancement. After receiving a certain number of experience points, you will gain a level. You get to increase one of your attributes by 1, with an additional point if this is level 3, 6, or 9, 1d4 plus 2 skill points to spend, 5 life points, and you can increase your mana base by 1. More on that in the next video. Finally, if the increase brings your class level to 3, 6, or 9, you gain a special ability. Should you wish to, you can also multi-class. On Level Up, if you have 3 ranks in each of the class skills of a class, you can choose to gain that new class instead of improving one of your existing ones. This can allow you to eventually gain the special abilities of multiple classes. And since we don't really need to adjust these rules for our setting swaps, that about wraps up the base mechanics of this game. Thanks for sticking around. I hope this has helped clear up the mechanics of this game. My players and I greatly enjoyed getting to give them a play. The mixture of crunch and narrative style hits both the crunchy brain of the gamer and the role player in an extremely satisfying way. So along with that, our streamed play will be continuing on June 27th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time over on Twitch. So come on down to twitch.tv/RPGblender to see the rules outlined here in practice. And if you're watching this from the future, you can catch our play stream here in the cards. And of course, thank you again to the Rupture team for sponsoring this video series. If the game interests you, head on over to www.rupturerpg.com to sign up for the mailing list to be notified when the Kickstarter goes live. Check the link in the description. Next up, after we continue our play over on Twitch, we will be digging into the mechanics of magic. So be sure you've subscribed and clicked that notification bell. Anyway, thank you again, and remember, there's gaming outside the Forgotten Realms. Oh god.
I'm not even gonna roll for initiative
Oh,
because
it's a magic orb.
I wouldn't have seen
It's
this
a magic
coming.
orb, and it shoots out a beam of pure life energy, which strikes a patch of grass nearby, bringing it to further life, which it then goes over and begins to munch on.
Oh, we need this bison!
Oh my god.